right, let's talk about what I have to do because I have my own authority. Are there extra things that I have to do? And I'm going to pick on Landstar in this video because I got a comment from a Landstar driver this morning. But are there extra things that I have to do that a Landstar driver doesn't have to do? Because this comment says, oh, Landstar makes it much easier for him and it's much less stressful than having his own authority. It says a lot of other things, and I'll probably get to some of those a little bit later, but it's not a comment that stands alone. I get that comment quite often of people that just don't understand, and I completely understand where they're coming from because I've been there. I've been leased onto those companies and thought the exact same things. So we'll get into it, and I know there's going to be some things I'll leave out because I'm just kind of shooting from the hip here. So what do I have to do extra on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis that a Landstar driver doesn't have to do? Let's start off with my authority, getting my authority. That getting part is the hard part. That first couple of months where you're filing your paperwork and you're shelling out money and you're just wondering if you're doing everything right, that's the hardest part of all of this. Wondering about all those things you don't know, what could catch you up, what could trip you up, and getting yourself organized. So let's start out with, let's say you've got all that done. You've stressed out that first couple of months. You've got everything done. You got your tags for your truck and your IFTA. And let's start with IFTA. Now, when you sign on with Landstar, they send you an IFTA sticker and they file your IFTA reports for you. The ELD is keeping track of all that, and they just take that data off the ELD every quarter and file it for you. So they do make that easy for you. But how big of a headache is that? To get your IFTA, you fill out a piece of paperwork, you send it in, and they send you an IFTA sticker. I paid somebody, I think, $50 to do it for me, and the IFTA sticker was basically free. So there's it was 5 minutes out of my life. 5 minutes one time. So really nothing extra there that I had to do. Now, every quarter, I go into my ELD and I pull out the report, and I have to go on my state's website and enter those miles and gallons where I fuel. That takes about 15 minutes. So that is some extra that I have to do. Let's see, I wrote down a couple of things. So let's talk about a drug consortium. Like everything else with your authority in the beginning, you have to fill out an application. You have to figure out which drug consortium you want to go with. They cost about $99 a year. I filled out a application and I paid $99. It took about 10 minutes, and I was a member of a drug consortium. I went down and took my own drug test like you would have to do with any company, and now they send me something about every quarter saying you're in compliance, or they send me something that says, hey, you got scheduled for a random drug screening. So no different than being at Landstar at all, except for that first initial 10 minutes of filling out paperwork. And ELD, that's a big one, depending on how you use your ELD. But so with Landstar, which I know they're getting rid of all the Qualcomms now, but with Landstar, I had to go in and leave my truck, and it took them about half a day to install the Qualcomm. Nowadays, they have these, they're so easy to install. I installed mine and set myself up as the administrator, and then signed myself in as a driver. That took about 45 minutes at the very beginning. I don't think about it now. I pay $50 a month. I don't remember what the fee was at Landstar, but with the ELD I have now, I can use that as a hotspot if I need to. And it also will read engine fault codes. If something goes wrong with my truck, they can pull that up. And it keeps track of my IFTA data also. Makes that easy for me. So on other than the one time setting it up, I don't do anything different than anybody, or at least on the Landstar does. A pre-pass, I don't have a pre-pass. I might apply for one, but the majority of runs that I do, this one run that I do, I don't even pass a weigh station, so I don't really need one. But that's a 5-minute application and costs $10 a month if you want one of those. Still, nothing any different than a Landstar driver does. Inspections. Now here's a big one. And Landstar, I've had lots of these. I've mentioned inspections from Landstar before, and have these drivers saying, "Oh, it's no big deal. You just didn't plan," or all these things. But here's the thing: in my truck, if I need an inspection, I just find the nearest inspection site near me. It could be on this road. It could be on any one road. Any DOT inspection site, I can pull in, have my truck inspected, and be gone. You can't do that with Landstar. As a matter of fact, I only have to do that one time. At Landstar, you have to do it every single quarter, and you can't just pull into any inspection station. You have to pull into their pre-approved inspection stations. And here's what happened to me on a number of occasions with Landstar. Because there isn't one of those inspection stations within 100 miles of my home, I have to kind of do those inspections while I was on the road. So one particular time, I booked a load, and I said, "Hey, I'll just get the inspection done along the way." I had to go about 50 miles out of my route to get to this place. I pre-called and asked them if they did Landstar inspections. They said yes. I get there, and they had one guy that did Landstar inspections, and guess what? He wasn't there that day. So I had to keep going, and the next place I called, exact same thing. But that you can see where not only is it costing you time, it's costing you money. Those places that Landstar wants you to go to get inspected, 9 times out of 10, you're not just going to pull up to the door, pull in and get inspected and be in and out in 20 minutes. Most of the time they're at TA or Petro or someplace like that, where there are 4 or 5 trucks in front of you getting tires replaced or oil changes, so you're waiting an hour or 2 or 3. So saying that those are no big deal, you're basically taking at least a half a day or maybe a whole day, depending on if there's something wrong with your truck, every quarter to do those inspections. And that's not a DOT requirement. That is a Landstar requirement. So you're doing a lot of extra stuff just to be signed on with Landstar, just for inspections. And like I said, I know I'm going to get guys that say, "Oh, it's no big deal. They pay for it." But are they really paying for it? Think about it. You're the one that's suffering because you can't run. You're stuck for a half a day. And that's if you're lucky. That's if you're keeping the same trailer and you don't pick up a trailer that's past due on the inspection and having to keep doing that over and over. But anyway, past that, it really makes a big difference when you can just get your inspection done everywhere and you don't only have to do one. That's the DOT requirement. Only one inspection, not one every quarter. Training classes. When I was at Landstar and all those other companies, they required me to do their safety training courses, which had nothing to do with DOT. Nothing. It was another one of those things where they covered their butts, and they'll send you these things in the email, say, "Oh, you got training's coming up again. It's the same safety course you did last quarter or last year or whatever. But yeah, those quizzes and those safety things, again, it's not a DOT requirement, it's a Landstar requirement. So that's extra stuff you're having to do just to be leased on with Landstar. And I know a couple of people who got shut down because they didn't do their Landstar requirements on time. Now they're perfectly legal with the DOT, but the Landstar shut them down. So just another layer of crap you have to do. Now going back to the ELD for a second. I don't use personal conveyance. Matter of fact, most weeks I don't even get close to using my 70-hour clock. But when you're leased on to places like Landstar, there's always somebody looking over your shoulder at those logs. They have their rules, not DOT rules. They have their rules for how you can use your hours. And I can't remember what the rule was at Landstar, but like a lot of these companies say, oh, you can only use 1 hour of personal conveyance, and you can only use it when you're doing these certain activities, and you can't use it when you're going home, no matter if you're empty or not. But that's another thing, that just one more hoop you have to jump through that I don't have to worry about. As long as I'm DOT compliant, I can use as much PC as I want. If I don't have a load on my truck and I'm not going anywhere but to pick up another load, I can PC. It's one of those things where I don't have to worry about the company sending me a nasty email saying, hey, what happened today? You went over on your clock or something like that. I don't have to jump through that hoop. I can approve all that stuff myself and not worry about it. Now, as far as my CDL goes, everything's exactly the same. I have to pass a DOT. Now, here's the difference. If I have some kind of medical condition, I don't have to tell Landstar, and they call me up and say, hey, this, according to this, you need to come in and do a sleep apnea test, or you're taking this kind of a medication and you can't do that according to our policy. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I can take care of myself. I don't need Landstar to take care of my medical problems for me. Factoring. Whether you know it or not, if you're at Landstar or any of these other companies, you are factoring. With Mercer, I believe I was using Apex to factor, and that's the exact same company I have now. So what do I have to do that's extra to get my money? Nothing. All I have to do is, when I finish a load, take a picture of that invoice, take a picture of the BOL, hit send, make a little invoice. It takes less than 5 minutes, and I get paid the next day. I don't have to have certain things. I don't have to have a cover letter. I don't, nothing. As long as that BOL number's on there, and as long as I have a picture of the Raycon, I'm good to go. A lot of the loads that I do, there's not even a BOL. I have to make my own BOL. There's no signatures on it, nothing. And they still get approved, and I get paid the next day. So there's nothing extra that I have to do to get paid, except for, like all these other things, in the beginning, I had to sign up for the service. And signing up for the ELD, took minutes. Signing up for the factoring service probably took 20 minutes total. And with that factoring service, I also got a fuel card that's sort of a partner to Apex, which makes that super easy, because every time I turn in an invoice, I tell them to pay my fuel bill. They pay the fuel bill. I don't have to think about it. I never have a big bill at the end of the week. Nothing like that. I can actually, in advance if I need to, I've never taken one, but nothing is different in that aspect. I will say this. I've had people say, oh, well, I get these big discounts on fuel and tires and stuff. Well, if I wanted to, I can sign up with Landstar and get their fuel and tire discounts. Because every time you do a packet with one of these large mega carriers, Landstar, Mercer, Swift, Schneider, JB Hunt, they offer you their maintenance and fuel cards at no charge whatsoever. So I can get the exact same discounts that a Landstar driver gets. No difference whatsoever. What else? I'm trying to wrote down a few notes here, but okay, here's another one that I get quite a bit. People think that I actually have one guy saying, "Oh, your wife makes she's obviously makes great money. You don't have to worry about making money," or something to that effect. And then I get a lot of these that say, "Oh, well, your wife is sitting at home booking loads for you. You have to have somebody to help you out." And it's funny because the Landstar driver who left that comment this morning said that, you know, if you have your own authority, you have to have your wife or somebody at home booking loads for you and doing paperwork. And I laughed to myself because I was thinking, what is the difference between me booking my own loads and a Landstar driver booking their own loads? There really is not much of a difference, because I look on load boards when I'm looking, you know, I rarely use load boards anymore, but I do the same thing a Landstar driver does. I find a load I like, I call the agent, and like I said before, starting out, you're doing the paperwork, you're filling out carrier packets, which most of the time, if you haven't filled out a carrier packet with a certain company, most of the time you do that digitally, and it takes about 10 minutes or less. So yeah, there's that. Occasionally I have to fill out a carrier packet. There's nobody at home doing this stuff for me. There's no need to have somebody. I like routing myself. I have lots of parameters, you know, running around in my head that I just can't teach somebody who's never driven a truck before, who's sitting at the house. You know, every day is different for me, and I might want to go in a different direction. But yeah, there is no difference between me booking a load and a Landstar driver booking a load. I flip through and refresh that load board. I find the load that I want. I call on it. I get sent the Raycon, and I'm gone. That's it. Occasionally fill out a carrier packet, but like I said, that's 5 or 10 minutes at the most. So as far as, you know, getting those loads, really no extra stress, no extra time. Occasionally you will have an agent who has their own paperwork. They don't want to do anything digitally. They're stuck in the caveman days. And this has happened to me maybe 3 times over this past year, where they had their own paperwork. So you basically have to print it out, fill it out, scan it, and send it back, and that takes usually about 20 minutes. But the big difference there is that I have 20 times more loads to choose from than a Landstar driver does. And that's what I talk about a lot, the freedom. That's why I originally went to Landstar, was for the freedom to pick my own loads. And that's why I eventually moved on to getting my own authority, was more freedom to get out of any other restrictions that any of these Landstar driver this morning said something about, well, that's what people with their own authority never tell you. When you have an accident, you spill diesel fuel all over the place, and you have to pay thousands upon thousands of dollars to get that cleaned up. Where do people get this stuff from? Yes, they have to clean up diesel fuel or anything that's in your, that you're carrying, but you don't stand on the side of the road and hand somebody cash to do that. Your insurance covers that stuff. Anybody's insurance covers that stuff. After an accident, does your insurance go up? Yes, but even if you're with Landstar, your insurance goes up. And on top of that, with Landstar, they give you a slap on the hand and give you a warning. You get one more of these and you're out the door. Or if you get any more points on your CSA, you're out the door. But yeah, insurance is very expensive, 3 times as much as being leased onto a company. But it's worth it. And here's, I went to Landstar, experienced that freedom, loved picking my own loads with Landstar. I really don't have much negative to say about Landstar. I think they're a good company, but they have their drawbacks, and just like every other company, they have to cover their butts because you have those drivers out there who want to do things a crazy way. I almost forgot where I was going with that. But here's the thing that I started thinking about over and over, and I understand because I have been there, and I didn't really get it until I went over to F2F and started booking my loads from every load board, and I started seeing how the paperwork was flowing back and forth, and I realized over the course of the past several years with Landstar and Mercer, I was paying those lease companies over $50,000 a year.
In half a mile, turn left onto the Texas 31 East Texas 7 loop ramp to Tyler.
Oh, she was loud today. I was paying them over $50,000 a year for them to do what? Were they really making it easier for me? Because like I said, they just add on an extra layer of rules that the DOT doesn't care anything about, but Landstar wants you to jump through those hoops. What did they actually do for $50,000? And like the guy who commented this morning, who said it wasn't worth it because Landstar takes all the stress out of it. There is nothing that I'm doing on a daily, a weekly, or a monthly basis that's any different than a Landstar driver does, except I'm not jumping through those extra hoops. Taxes, we all have to, you're an owner-operator. If you're at Landstar, you're doing the same kind of taxes that I'm doing. Your business may not be structured the same, but I have a manila folder. When I get a receipt, I put it in the manila folder, and I have categories written on back of the manila folder, and I'll write the total down in that, so at the end of the year, I don't have to pull out all these receipts and tally everything up. It's just right there on the outside of that folder. Landstar doesn't do that for you. That's something you have to do yourself. But you're paying those people $1,000 a week. If that's just a normal running, that's not being a road warrior. Some of those road warriors are paying $60,000 and $70,000 for the privilege of running under Landstar's authority. And like the guy commented this morning, he has no stress whatsoever. Guess what? I don't either. But I'm putting that $1,000 a week in my pocket and not Landstar's. And by the way, I'm still able to run those Landstar loads because they're on the load boards out here too. But I'm not trying to be a smart aleck. It's just that videos where I put out, that I'm making good money, and they're thinking to themselves, oh yeah, but what isn't he telling us? They're not going back and watching that video I did on getting your authority, or the monthly cost of it, or anything like that. And that's why I had to make this video. There's nothing after that first month or two. There's nothing that you're doing differently than any other person that's leased on to Landstar. As a matter of fact, you're doing less. And the stress level is much, much less. Because there's nobody looking over your shoulder. What do I have to do to stay in compliance with my DOT? It's the exact same thing that any Landstar driver has to do. Exactly. There's nothing special about it. Just that first couple of months of stress. Learning something different. Looking back, from the position I'm in now, looking back a year or two, I wish I'd have done this a lot sooner, and to get away from those, because there are people that love the position they're in. There are people that love being signed on with Landstar, and they have the that feeling of security that somehow Landstar is their safety net, that Landstar makes everything easier. And for some people it is that way. But again, I'm going to say this over and over, because the comment he put on there that I'm not saying, telling everybody about this extra stress and about how much extra it costs and all that, and how I have to have somebody, either my wife or somebody else at home, doing all my paperwork for me and booking loads. Even though all that is not true, think about it this way. You could pay somebody to sit at home and actually do all that for you, and really make things easier, much less stressful for you, instead of paying Landstar that $50,000 or $60,000 a year. You could pay somebody to sit at home, pay them $20,000, $30,000, and they'll do things exactly the way you want them done, and not the way Landstar wants you to do them. And you can come out $30,000 the better. $1,000 a week at least that they're taking from you to so-called make things easier. And like I said, I have nothing against Landstar or any of these other companies. They're a means to an end. That's what they were for me. And do they make things easier for you? To me, after being there and being where I am now, I have to say no. Do they make things less stressful? A little bit. Getting your authority right in the beginning is stressful. There's a lot of things you're learning that you don't know. But after that, no. Do you make more money at those companies? You might, on certain occasions, make more money at Landstar because you can haul hazmat loads. You might be on, like I have a buddy that's on a hazmat account, and he has a little dedicated route, and he makes damn good money. But in the end, is it worth it? That's something every driver, everybody has to make that own decision. But I'm here to tell you, it's not less stressful being signed on to those companies. It's actually more stressful, because you're not able to run your business exactly the way you want.